Today I thought I would talk about that when we're looking at our patterns and we're looking at the things that we play out that we wish we wouldn't, all the choices we make that are causing more problems or complication or chaos in our life rather than greater peace, harmony, well-being. Oftentimes when we were growing up, we only got attention when we had problems. When there was things for our parents to be worried and concerned about with us was when we got our greatest undivided attention from our parents. And your inner child takes that same pattern with you as you become an adult and says, they're not paying attention to me, so why don't I create more problems in their life? And then I will be seen and heard, and I will have their full attention. And so we play out choices that we know aren't good for us, but we can't stop ourselves from making them because on the deepest level, our inner child, that in every person to some degree, until it starts to heal and you start to wake up, and even as you're healing and waking up, your inner child still can sometimes speak through you or make choices through you. And when we're looking at people who we go, how that feels like such an immature choice, or how could they speak to people that way, it's because their inner child is speaking through them. If you're like, I think a 10-year-old would say words like that, it's probably because their inner 10-year-old is talking through them. And the inner 10-year-old within people creates greater complication, chaos, acts in ways that are unkind or disrespectful to create problems in people's lives and their relationships, because then the body, the ego structure gets that person's full undivided attention, and it keeps the pattern fulfilled because all our inner child is trying to do is to get our attention more often. And so it says, I got my parents' attention most often when I had problems and I had issues. So if I make choices that are going to create greater problems and issues for me, then I will be seen and validated how I always wish I was seen and validated when I was a child. And it's a fantasy the inner child has, because the attention it's getting isn't fulfilling and nourishing like it would be loving, that like it would be from a parent that's loving, admiring, and encouraging. But most of the time when we were growing up, we received attention that was a mixed bag, that sometimes was negative and put us down and toxic, and sometimes maybe every now and then it was uplifting and upbringing. And so the inner child goes, familiar. Like if you make bad choices and then are hard on yourself, the inner child goes, familiar. And it does feel closer to you because you are fully with it in that moment, even if it is negative attention or you're being hard on yourself. And the greatest way to soothe any pattern playing out with you, or to soothe a pattern that others are playing with you, is to give yourself, give other people your full undivided attention with them. One, because where our attention goes is where love goes. And two is to fill them up with greater goodness, to point out more often what they're doing right, to give yourself, give others more compliments, because everyone is acting from a place of arrogance or egregious behavior, or making choices aren't good for them, for how little loved and seen and heard and valued they feel. And they go, well, at least people will give me their attention even if I'm making a giant mess of my life. And so if you take more time to see, hear, and value you in this moment, you're going to find an easier way through any patterns, any addictions, anything that you're lost in. Any time where you say words where you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, it's just that part asking for more love. Any time where people are acting in ways where you're like, they're not making good choices, or they should be speaking to they should be speaking to me or others differently, is them crying out for, at least when I act this way, people focus on me. And it's them crying out for love. And the moment you go, I'm going to provide the greatest gifts to myself, to others that they seem to be lacking or missing, whether it's gratitude or kindness or value or strength and discernment, can I show that with others? And if anyone's ever being disrespectful, we can always set boundaries and remove ourselves from the situation. But if people are being respectful and just not making good choices, can we give them gifts of what they seem to need? If they don't see their beauty, can we remind them of how beautiful, incredible, special they are, how smart and intelligent they are? Because we're all smart and intelligent in our own fields of interest, in our own things that we're passionate about. And oftentimes, the same pattern that makes disharmony in your life or makes choices that cause greater unwellness within you is the same pattern that goes, if I accomplish lofty dreams, if I become whatever I dream of being, whether it's a professional musician or a recognized chef on Food Network, or even just a person who's respected in my community, oftentimes the part of you that dreams that says, if I achieve this, then I will be seen, heard, and people will value me like how I was never valued, seen, and heard as a child. And it's the same pattern as the parts of us that make choices and create problems in our life. It's the same pattern that goes, if I can be a bigger character than the character I am now, if I can make it as a human and be successful, and others can see my success, then they will give me value and they will listen to what I have to say. And the reality is, we only feel that way when we haven't given time in our day to see, hear, and value ourselves. So as we go through our day, can we take more time to connect with our body, whether that's yoga or working out or just sitting with our body and feeling our body? Can we take time to feel our breath more often as we go throughout our day? Maybe before we eat a meal, we take a couple of breaths. Before we walk into a grocery store, we take a couple breaths. Maybe before we leave our building, we take a couple breaths, and we just use times throughout our day as a reminder to connect with our breath, because as we feel our breath, we're fully in our body. Another way to connect with yourself is when you're brushing your teeth, can you take a moment or two to look yourself in the eyes and give yourself compliments that you'd want to hear that day? I have the most beautiful bone structure. I am so incredibly creative. I am such an extraordinary human being, and I always am doing the best I can in each moment. And give yourself some recognition and validation. And the more you take time to validate yourself, to encourage yourself, to praise yourself, to give yourself compliments as you go through your day, the less you're going to seek it from other people, the less you're going to throw yourself in relationships hoping that people will love you the way you've always wanted to be loved, the less you're going to strive and chase some lofty dream that even if you got it, people would still not meet you fully how you wanted to be met as a child. And the real thing is that the real healing along our healing journey and reclaiming our power is, can we be the parent that we always imagined but never quite received growing up. And if we can do that for ourselves, we're on the journey of healing, and it's not about getting it perfect, but more often than not, in this life is about enjoying ourselves. So even if we are struggling to give ourselves compliments, can we take more time to do things we enjoy? Because the more time we spend time enjoying ourselves, the more we are going to feel lit up, fulfilled, nourished, and the more often we will feel like we lived a valuable life, because all we really came on this planet is to enjoy ourselves. And so can we take more time throughout our day to enjoy ourselves? I hope that helps. Thanks for listening.